Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Bazaar podcast. Today you will be joined by me, MetallFenix, as well as my co-host Walter,
This is drummer Walter. How you doing?
and we also have returning guest Sunny. Why don't you introduce yourself a bit for people who might
Hello,
not be familiar?
yeah, I mean, I mostly come from Runeterra, different game. Now I've just been playing Bazaar. I'd consider myself a bit of an off-meta enjoyer, but yeah, just regular YouTuber streamer nowadays.
Yeah, and Walter, you had a question that you'd been curious to ask Sunny. Why don't you go ahead and just fire that off to kind of lead us into it?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I really and I'm a regular in Sunny's stream, and I mean I think so at least. Regular enough. Uh,
hmm
you always play or not always play, but you usually play like some off meta stuff, and I noticed, like, for example, like one way I would think if I would get into off meta would be like I would do enchanted item stuff and just try to like follow the path of the enchanted item. But like when I watch you play, I feel like your process is like different than that. You tend to more do something um like start with a kind of normalish build, build your econ up a lot, and then just like hard pivot in the middle of the game into like something crazy. Like to me that's like kind of your style. So do you want to kind of explain how you kind of developed your methodology for trying weird stuff in the bazaar? Because I know there's more to it than that, I think, but like yeah, just talk a little bit
hmm
about how you kind of do what you do in terms of building a or trying to build a different board every single game.
Yeah, that's pretty funny actually because I think you hit like the nail right on the head with that description of how I do it. I do a really normal start and then I try to transition into something crazy. And I feel like a lot of people when they think off meta, they do exactly that. They do like enchant the start and they just try to like follow whatever the quote unquote and off meta enchanted item will do for you. I really don't like that because I feel like if I take an enchanted start, it's kind of leading is leading where I go from like before I even click any stores or make any decisions. So I tend to just go econ almost every single time. I try to just like build up resources and then I play normal in the early game until I find like a cool monster item, monster skill, or just I don't know a dig site or something. So that's usually the process. And that's also why I really like playing Pig because I feel like he is the best at first of all building up econ, and second of all he's also really good at just having an item in the back that you can maybe transition to later, or just have that item scale up in value and power. The second, like my second favorite, is Mac for that reason because I feel like he is second best at that. And Dulie and Vanessa have less roads where you can kind of use something like that. Vanessa has like Cove and Lockbox, but I feel like those don't really lead to the most interesting builds, the most varied builds most of the time. But that is definitely the way I like to play. It's just play normal, and then find something cool in the mid game. Which is also why, if I look at previous card games that I've played, and this is also like kind of a struggle, if I sometimes have like people that watch me play actual deck builders in the past, they're like, "Oh wow, look at this guy. He's playing Pig, and his early game he has Showcase, and he has a yo-yo and a flail or something, right?" It's like, yeah, I can't really like be off meta day one and two because I need to like try to win, build up some econ, build up some tempo, and then transition into something. I feel like Bazaar is really different in how it approaches that play style. So that's why I play normal in the early game. I just try to like be ahead so I don't fall too far behind when I want to finally make that transition into like a YouTube build, I guess you could call it. Because yeah, if I do that transition, it's not always the cleanest. I don't always get to choose. So I want to make sure that if that transition doesn't fully succeed, I have some leeway with either health or just a lot of money that I can make it work a little bit better.
Yeah, like especially what you said at the end there about like being ready to like make the transition in terms of like you don't just have money, but you have like wins in the bank. Because I feel like in the bazaar, it's almost like the faster you end the game, the more the more different types of builds can win you the game. So like because if you have all wins, then you only have to win on day 10, right? With your
Yeah.
final with your quote unquote final build. And so like the difficulty of winning on day 10 in terms of board power means that that allows for more off meta builds in a sense. Like in theory, like day 15, while you have lots of time to find something crazy, the pressure on your build from the opponents is going to be that much higher. So it almost feels like, yeah, if you try to just like play off meta from the start, you'll pick up a lot of losses and then you'll have a really hard time like getting to 10 wins because you're going to find yourself on day 14 with, even if something is like off meta and working, that doesn't is not going to make it like invincible in the late game. You know what I mean? So I think it actually does make a lot of sense for what you're trying to do, and it always hinges on that like 1 to 2 day transition when you're moving from the quote unquote normal build to the like to the the YouTube build is what you called it. Yeah,
Yeah. The
the
items that
content
give me a
machine.
nice, yeah, just making sure I have a nice looking thumbnail with some items you don't see too often.
Yeah,
That's funny
perfect.
because when I play Runeterra, I would sometimes deck build and like, I mean, I feel like there's the only person that I can really say this about is Raran. I feel like he would do the same thing. If you guys know Raran, like the Hearthstone creator,
Hmm.
where like he's more of a YouTuber than he is a card gamer, and I was kind of becoming that as well for Runeterra. And I love Bazaar, but I feel like part of that is still like in me. In Runeterra, I would deck build, and I would be like, what card do I want on a thumbnail? And then I would just build my deck around that. It's like what would be a cool video to show people. And in Bazaar, you can't really choose that. So when I do get an item where I'm like, holy shit, it would be so cool if I can make this work, I just try to force it. And exactly for that reason, you want to have as much health, as much tempo, as much money to make sure that while you make that transition into something that's potentially worse, you can kind of get away with it. But yeah, that's exactly like you said. The earlier you can make that work, the earlier in the game you can make that work, the less likely you are to lose to like insane day 14 builds because even meme items don't really stand up to most more meta day 14
Yeah.
builds.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I got too. I actually think it's really smart your approach because and I also think that in a way like enchanted item start is meta. Do you know what I mean? Like if I
Hmm.
think a lot of the top players right now are playing enchanted item pig
Yeah.
as their default. Like that's what the current rank 1 player is doing. So I think like enchanted item, which in the past has kind of been viewed as not like a quote unquote meta strategy, is very much in meta right now anyway. So
Yeah.
I think your approach as a way to get something different, it makes a lot of sense because especially on pig enchanted item, first of all there's like a smaller pool of like because there's pig has these smalls that like don't have enchants like rewards card or whatever.
Yeah.
um, you end up with like fewer possible smalls to be your enchanted item because you can't get like golden rewards card in your enchanted item like
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
So you basically end up taking like piggles or premium piggles or yo-yo or like ring king like but what I mean is you just kind of end up taking the same small items every enchanted item start. Like there's like 10 of them, and
Yeah.
then so in that way it is like a meta strategy. It pushes you down a certain way. Like if you take the matchbox, then like it's well trod territory, I would say, the enchanted items start at this point. So I do appreciate your approach to doing something different. I also appreciate your approach to doing something different with your content in general, which is like another thing I want to talk about, which is like the other you have bizarre content not that is not just watching runs of the Bazaar, which is something I really appreciate and I think is like an important path forward for the game.
Yeah. So yeah, for context, I like the first thing I do is like which is more normal. I just ask like a really good player to like coach me, just like hold my hand and let's go through this run together. And you share all your knowledge that first of all, I can get better from hearing that advice, but also viewers, they really appreciate it. The second thing is that I have a little Discord. It's mostly like from what I built up during Runeterra, but now like some Runeterra players have started playing Bazaar, and there's new Bazaar players that are there now. And I run events where I ask people to submit a certain type of board. I give them a week. She's like, "Hey, here's a channel on this Discord. Post your coolest board." And then after a week, I'm going to look at it and I give the winner like the prize pass or the like I pay a month for their subscription or something. Just whichever board I find the coolest wins. And another thing I've been doing is an event called What Board Wins, where I ask people to submit fights that are really close. And this could be any fight. It can be a day 2 fight, it can be a PvE fight, just like anything. As long as the fight is close, and then I guess what board would win between the two. And I also have like a little extension where Twitch chat can type either top or bottom, which yeah, for the top board or the bottom board, which one would win. And then we kind of have like a little contest between each other, like who gets the most guesses. So that's been really fun, and I really like innovating on content where it's more than just yeah, like you said, just playing a game. Stuff I did in Runeterra is also I don't know, like doing certain challenges through cards, which is also something Raran does very often. Just like, hey, can I win by just stealing every card out of my opponent's deck? It doesn't matter if I win or lose at the end. I just want to steal every single card they have, and that is a reason I'm really excited for Bazaar to do achievements. I know that everybody's a fan of achievements, but as far as content goes, it's great because you kind of get like a lead where it's like, hey, try to do this specific thing that you would normally never do. And it might not win you the game, but you have another thing that you essentially win. And it's not really winning, but it's just like, hey, you got a nice unlock on your account or something. And I really
I
appreciate that kind of stuff because it's great for YouTube.
I do. I would like I also would like achievements, but I also would like them to be the way you. I don't want them to be like deal a million damage. I mean, they can have those ones too. They could have like deal a million damage or whatever, deal whatever. I want them to be like something like accomplish something weird as like an achievement. Like just
Yeah.
do
Mhm.
something weird one time, as opposed to like the do heal 500 million over your lifetime. Like those ones are kind of boring to me, but
Mhm.
but the yeah, the unique ones are definitely a cool idea. What I really like about the contest in particular is like you're finding ways because like right now in the bazaar it's like you could play to win your game, you can play to make something creative, but it's like your build is like ephemeral, right? Like it goes away at the end of the run, and you can, maybe you can post it on a Discord or post it on Reddit or something, and maybe some people will see it and say nice things about it. But um, what I like is that you're finding a way to reward players for being creative in the game that the game otherwise doesn't really reward you for, right? Like you don't get a bonus points for having the most unique build at the end of the run, even if you get 10 wins or you got 7 you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Mhm.
you're and like but that's like a part of the game that players love. Like people love making something, I mean, that right? Like that's something that brings people back to the game over and over again. So to find a way to recognize players for doing something that they really like about the bazaar, making unique builds, making cool combinations, like I think that's awesome. Like I think you're in a way like you're filling a gap that tempo is leaving open, right? Is that there should be some reward for being creative in the game. I mean, maybe, but if
Mhm.
given that there isn't, like you're creating that, and I think that's amazing. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout out. I thought that style of content is so good and so like it's so good for also having YouTube videos that are not like an hour long. Because I know that that's
Yeah.
like part of the challenge of making run videos is that like algorithms don't like long form content or whatever. And
Mhm.
I know that that's a challenge for creators. So I think you're really pushing the ball forward in terms of being creative with the bizarre content.
Well, thank you, first of all. And yeah, I think the YouTube algorithm right now, it really wants you to like watch every single like as long as possible. They just want their attention. So what's difficult with Bazaar that I find to be a really big challenge as well that I don't really know how to overcome yet if I'm just doing gameplay is the fact that I feel like sometimes people just click on the video, they'll go to like the final fight and then leave. It's actually like the metrics are super weird sometimes. There's like an uptick in, like you can see that in the analytics, the graph just like kind of goes up near the final days. And that's, I don't know, that's weird because retention is everything. Something I complained about a lot as well is that Bazaar didn't really lend it to short form content too well. But I've kind of figured out a way to make that work anyway. So I think that's also important that that's not as bad as it looks because for short form content, I just like do little intros like, wow, I played Stealth Glider and I can't believe I went invincible for 10 seconds. This is broken. And that I just played the final fight where I like dodged 2 powder kegs or something with that invincibility, and that works out pretty well. But
Or
I
that
think
one
it's
was
especially
so cool. I remember watching that one. That one was sweet. The double keg stealth glider. That
yeah.
was so sweet. The two kegs just hit you at the same time and they both bounce off. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of the coolest things I was able to do for sure. But yeah, that's the kind of thing like I in Runeterra I did like lore stuff and I don't know, just any kind of challenge, anything that wasn't just gameplay. And that was also, to be honest, a way of coping for me because every single game kind of goes through like bad patches, and that's normal. Some metas
Yeah.
are just not for you. So I kind of code my way through that by just like, oh, yeah, this meta, I really hate it. So I'm just going to edit videos. Like I'm going to make way more highly edited videos. I'm going to do stupid challenges, anything, so I can still play my game and do editing, which I actually really enjoy. But so I don't actually have to interact with like all the frustrating cards or whatever. And
Have
for
you ever
Bazaar, I
tried have
Mhm.
you ever tried making a yeah, sorry to interrupt. Have you ever tried making like a how would I say it? Like a very edited run, like a condensed run where like perhaps you like fast forward some of the intermediary gameplay, show the fights, or like just basically like a run of the Bazaar, like one of in the same way you would feature it normally, but using editing to condense it down to I don't know 20 minutes maybe something like that. I'm not sure how feasible that is. It would take a lot of editing work I would think, but like I'm wondering like if you said, people are some of your audience at least is inclined to like, oh, we'll just watch the last fight. And I sort of understand that mentality from a player perspective of like I want to see what the final board is so I can like try it in my game. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
Mhm.
the the true like more informed take on that is that like actually like the learning happens inside of the game if you actually want to learn how to do what you're doing and make a cool build. Like you have to make the decisions inside the game. Looking at the final board does not help you get there as much as we would all imagine, right? Like
Yeah.
I can look down Reddit and see, 20 people posting their crazy roll, but like their crazy build, but like that doesn't get me any closer to replicating it. So,
Yeah.
so I kind of think that like, yeah, it's kind of stinks that people have that inclination. I mean, it's like whatever you want to call it, like Zoomer brain, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think also maybe a super edited down run could also do really well on YouTube because I
I
do think there is like
can
a lot of dead time in a run, right? There's the monster fights and stuff that you don't necessarily have to watch.
I can like chip in with my perspective on that because it is something that I've considered doing in the past, and we'll see if Sunny kind of agrees with that. But the
Mhm.
the main issue is that I think doing what you suggest would be completely doable, like practically. You can definitely edit down a run to 20 minutes or even faster. And I do think it would make really good videos that would be a ton of fun to watch. But the dilemma I always found myself facing whenever I considered actually doing it myself is just the raw amount of time it takes to edit down such a long run. And the biggest issue is that I think if you wanted to do it really well, there would be a ton of small decisions that you'd want to highlight, like, oh, here I picked up this item to hedge, keep in mind that for later, or here I decided to gumballs, and that'll be relevant for crit later, or various factors like that, which mean that in practice you would need to go over the footage so many times to find every single little thing that you think you would want to include in order to make those condensed 20 minutes like a really engaging and interesting viewer experience, would just end up taking so much time and effort that it'll never balance out with the metrics that the video will like realistically
Yeah,
receive in
you'd be spending
practice.
way more time. You'd be like spending 4 videos worth of time to make 1.5 videos worth of
If
views or
even
whatever.
that, it might be closer to like a 10-to-1 ratio, basically, and
Okay, yeah,
you'd
fair
probably
enough.
get like you'd get like 40-50% more views maybe, but then it's like, oh, that didn't really balance out. That's at least
Yeah,
how it's felt to
I
me.
understand what you mean. Yeah, it makes sense. I think that like yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it does also feel like that if you're feeling like if no one else is doing that, then maybe there is like potential there for like for more views than like 50% more is kind of my point that that if that's really something that the audience is desiring or they're showing that they want that based on their like behavior, I guess, then maybe it's still worth
I
trying. I mean,
think
you know.
if the game had like a League of Legends level player base, there definitely would be, because I remember back in the
Yeah, fair
day,
enough.
I would watch a lot of. There were a lot of dedicated creators who would take a 40-minute league game and edit it down to a 10
Yeah,
to
that's kind of
15
where
minute
my
like
where the
highlight
idea for it
video.
came from for me is that
Yeah.
like I felt like I had watched League gameplay that was edited in that way where they would like fast forward through the intervening like they fast forward running back to lane or
Yeah.
whatever and
But
and I thought that you could
I
yeah.
think the biggest thing with League too, and this is the pain point with the Bazaar for me, is that in League you could kind of zoom in on an interesting fight in lane phase or an interesting purchase in the base, and then the stuff that you would cut is that the game has long sections that are easily identifiable as this is basically filler. Like, I'm running
Yeah.
back to lane, easy cut.
Yeah.
I'm dead, easy cut. That kind of stuff. Whereas in the Bazaar, you would need to make so many cuts because the filler sections aren't
Yeah, the only
cohesive.
obvious
Like, they're
one is
not
like monster fights, right?
attached to
Like
each
that's the
other. Yeah.
only yeah, that's the only like obvious thing that you could fast forward through. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
even that,
I
like,
agree. I mean, I hope the audience gets to a place where someone can do that feasibly, right? Because I do think it's like there is something there's something there, right? Like, and I love because it's like really the Bazaar. If you look at the category on YouTube, it's just like I want to say 90% of it is just videos of people's runs, and I think that it could be so much more than that, you know, as a content category, not just as a game. So.
yeah, I
I
think
said my piece.
I mean this is something I've thought about a lot
Hmm.
because I also used to think like that for Runeterra, and what I found was that there are basically like two different types of runs if you're like doing YouTube primarily, and
Hmm.
the cutting, from my perspective, doesn't work if you're doing Bazaar gameplay because the end goal kind of for a run is like how many wins can I get? How can I get to 10 wins? So every single step you go through in a run matters for context to show how did I get those 10 wins. Like I get cutting monster fights might be like the only thing that you could cut as downtime, but even that it's like a fight. It's when action is actually happening on the screen and you're kind of like taking away the moment of satisfaction where you get to see the items in action. And I feel
That's
like that
true. That's
also
true.
yeah.
Yeah, if I
So
were
this
to
actually Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I were to ever do it practically, I'd probably keep the fights and stuff in, but my idea is more that there are a lot of minute details that are not entirely irrelevant, but that don't necessarily make the best content that you could probably edit in a way to sort of get to highlight the most interesting things. And I think the trade-off, in theory at least, what I would envision for a video like that, is if you cut out, for example, when you went to a vendor, rolled, and left, and there wasn't anything relevant in there. Or a lot of the, like, deliberation and stuff when you're just thinking about what to pick up, which I do love in terms of, like, more long form, more educational videos. Those discussions are super worthwhile. But in terms of, like, a more condensed, almost more cinematic experience, if you were to ever highlight only the most kind of impactful points in a run, the thing you'd get in return is the ability to add commentary where you could go into greater detail than you normally would on why that specific decision ended up so important for the run. But so kind of, in the style of when people do these over-explained videos, except instead of that making the runtime like twice as long and you have a 2-hour video, or
Yeah.
some of the really, really long, like pig over-explained 6-hour run type videos, you could over-explain a smaller number of things to cram high quality information into a shorter format. But very difficult to do in practice, I think.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that kind of lends itself to like the educational angle, right? Is
Yeah.
like that it would be like, okay, I'm playing this run and here like let's say I'm playing Silk. These are the key moments in my Silk run. Here's my day 1 decision, here's my day 5 key decision or whatever. Like here's my monster fight decision that was interesting. Like you could just pick out the points that illustrate something
Mhm.
that you want to show to the audience and
Or
then skip to that
also,
parts of the run.
I think, in addition to that, especially things like the hedges that actually panned out. Because I think a lot of the time, either people end up explaining every time they hedge, or they don't really end up explaining when they hedge at all. The latter, I'd say, is like more common just because it takes so much time if you're going to talk about every small decision. But it would be kind of cool to still have that red thread in a video where you could say, I pick up the battery here, and because of that, I pick up like the crude tools here, and because of that, 7 days in the future, now I have a crude tools battery momasaur board or what have you.
Yeah. Um, so regarding gameplay, I've never experimented with that because the few times that I have done something similar, it just hasn't worked out for me. And
Hmm.
if you're going to invest that much time in it, then yeah, it feels really bad if you spend that much time and it's just like, oh, but this
Yeah.
video gets 10 more views than a regular, or it gets less views. So this actually like kind of goes back to what I said about achievements. I think if your
Hmm.
main goal is completing a certain achievement, I think then you could do a run like that a lot easier because there
Right.
are fewer moments where your decision actually matters to complete the achievements.
Yeah, yeah. You kind
And
of
then
get
also like
the
the
narrative red thread given to you by the
exactly.
the theme.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
if your goal is a regular gameplay run where it's like I need to get as many wins as possible, I really think everything matters. Even cutting like a merchant where you don't find any items and you're just rolling, I think even cutting that is something that wouldn't work because even that is context. It's like, oh, if a viewer just sees you like skip an entire merchant, they're like, okay, I wonder what was in there, and I wonder why they decided not to take it. So it's hard, but the very long analytical thought processes I do cut out. Those
Right,
are like there's
right.
just not enough happening for me on the screen for that.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think there's a lot to think about, a lot of potentially interesting avenues. On that
Yeah.
note, do you have any particular maybe happening, maybe not future plans for this style of like alternative content? Like not specifically what we just talked about, but more broadly. Do you have any cool ideas coming up?
Yeah, so I mean the way I like evolving my ideas so they don't get stale. I'm not always doing the same thing. So something I've been thinking about for the guess what board wins contest I've been doing is like asking a couple of content creators or just like even designers and have them like tell me what board they think would win so I can like put it on
Right, right.
the contest. Like, hey, if I'm asking chat what they think would win, it's like, well, hey, guess what? Toby might think that the top board wins, but do you guys also think that that would win? So
Hmm.
I think stuff like that, kind of like evolving the content, is always fun. Um, yeah, something I'm just really looking forward is the achievements. I think with achievements you can really just cook many different video
Yeah.
formats. Um, I've wanted to do lore videos. I know that's probably not very interesting to the
Hmm.
people that play Bazaar for the game, but I think the world building they're doing is extremely interesting. So I hope to
Yes.
just like shed a little more light on that. And aside from that, yeah, I used to like making like kind of essays about certain metas, just like video essay-esque type of videos for
Hmm.
Runeterra. I've not really found a way to do that for Bazaar yet. I don't know if I will because they are extremely time consuming. And I have another channel I'm running for video essays, so it's kind of all up in the air. But just community involvement, I'm really excited about, and I hope that I don't know, maybe I can cook up something with the Stell release because I think those are the moments where people are really looking for like after seeing some of the items in action, they want to maybe see some more
Yeah.
unique style videos.
Okay. Well, that was kind of a longer introduction than usual, but it felt like you have a very unique content style, so it's worth highlighting. And we are also in one of those sort of lull states of the current live
Oh yeah.
game as well, where not nothing crazy has happened since the last episode of the podcast, and honestly, nothing crazy has really happened since the episode before that either. But we'll still cover a bit of what we've been playing as per usual, because I do still think, even when nothing crazy is changing, there's tons of refinement to be done, and the meta does still mature and develop. So it's still worth talking about, but we'll start off with you, Sonny. What have you been playing? Has it been all pig or some of the others as well?
It's mostly been Pig and a little bit of Mac. Like those are mainly the two I've been playing. I feel like Mac is really, really powerful right now, and I really enjoy his quest items. They're probably like my favorite items in the game. I just really enjoy the quest mechanic. But it's mostly just been Pig because I feel very comfortable on him. I am comfortable with his early game, especially like the transition points where it's like, oh, you're Silk or you're Showcase or you're transitioning into a drum build or something. If I'm streaming, it's a bit different because then I tend to do more off meta stuff. But I play a ton off stream as well, and then I just try to win because I'm not trying to impress anyone. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's mostly been it. It's mostly been Pig and Mac. I don't like Dulie, which is not really a surprise, I think, to most people.
Yeah,
And Vanessa is
especially
okay.
right now. I think Dulie has become even more of a character that specializes in a certain niche, which I think that's a good direction to take him in, because a lot of the people who love playing Dually really like that niche. And I do think he's gotten way more build diversity, but it's build diversity within like the framework of Dually. He's gonna do the Dually things. You just have many different flavors to choose from, but it's like picking between 8 flavors of ice cream rather than going into a kitchen and cooking whatever you feel like, is sort of my impression of it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. But I think the recent changes they've made to him were very good though, and it makes
Hmm.
him like feel like an actual character to me. I
Yeah.
am happy with that, and it makes me more willing to actually try him out too, because I found him to be very frustrating in the past. But now it's like, yeah, it's not always the same, and I feel like I do have a bit more flexibility playing him.
Yeah, for sure. Have you been focusing on any particular strategies when it comes to Pygmalion? You did mention a bit in regards to it at the start, but it can still be
Mhm.
useful for people who like what you're selling and want to buy in to have a bit more clear of an idea of what have you been doing in the early game and what do you think
Um,
works best?
so I think Pig's early game kind of comes down to a couple of power items most of the time, where it's like, oh, if you wanna like, this has changed a little bit with his latest item set because like picking up premium piggles and getting some wins with that, especially enchanted, is still valid. But what it came down to, I felt like was you pick up either lumbors or a robe or a showcase. Basically, I might be missing one, but one of those three items, and if you build around those, you have a solid early game. Another thing that I think is extremely powerful and will continue being powerful is Silk. I always click on the cat, basically, where the kimono thing that
Yeah.
can give you a silk, and then I just try to hold as many items as possible until the silk is silver, and then you try to pick up a crusher claw and like a fort or whatever, and then you're usually just like cruising to at least 7 wins pretty comfortably if you're willing to kind of do the whole APM thing with buying selling, which Pig is pretty unmatched for that. But I think the best way to get wins with Pig remains showcase with like a bunch of weapons, maybe 3 shield items if you can get away with it, and then just going drum, and then
My
just
Silk
having like
APM is insane. You wouldn't even believe how fast I sell gumballs. I'm off the charts.
I
It's
had to slow down
very
because I sold my good item a couple of times because of
Yeah,
that.
I sold my textiles accidentally 3 days ago, so we've
Oops.
all been there. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's been a fun transition. I believe it was episode 5 that Sunny was featured in the first time, and that would have been back when you were still only really playing Dulie, right, Walter?
Yeah, yeah. That was definitely during my most Dually era for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's
How far
very
you've come.
funny that it's gone long enough now that you've just fully joined Sunny in the pig camp instead.
High
okay,
five.
yeah, but part of it's like I don't think I did this intentionally so much. I think it was more just I switched to Mac because I really like Mac. I'm a big, when Mac came out, I switched to him immediately. And then I became disillusioned with the direction of Mac a little bit. And then maybe I would, if I went back to him this season, I would actually be having more fun with Mac probably because I do think he's very strong. But there's I kind of like came around on enjoying the like tedious parts of Pig is kind of what changed for me. Just because I understood the value of those items and like utilizing those items better, and it made it feel more worth doing to me. And also because honestly the rank system changed in a way that's much better for Pig. if
Yeah.
you if you just 10 win every game, you will just be rank 1. Even if you're a Pig, you know what I mean? Like you don't there's no like if you yeah, there's no like penalty for being slow really. Like you still need to play like a lot of games, quote unquote, from the perspective of like if you're a normal person who can only play like 1 to 2 games a day because you have a busy life and a job and stuff, that's still you'll 2 games a day is probably not enough to climb quick enough to get super high up. But if you play 4 games a day, that's enough easily. So I think because I know like Goose got top 100 last season playing like 4 games a day basically. So I think where it's at in terms of like the rank system, just everything has really like made it pretty nice for Pig, and I think that's reflected in what people are playing right now. So people are playing mostly Pig and Mac who are trying to climb.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you're just way better off playing greedy. Like better off going for the 10 win builds essentially. And Pig has always been very good at that. Whereas in the previous system, it was like just get as many wins as fast as possible. And especially getting
Yeah, you
wins
had to
like
spam so much; it was like a pure
yeah.
grind. It was not that was not my favorite. But
Yeah.
that's gone now. I'm not gonna dwell on the past, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I feel the same way. I mean, I've always enjoyed him, but I feel like Pig has been a lot more rewarding as just because of that, really. Just like the whole, you're better off getting 10 wins than you were before, in a way, with the new system.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Walter? Have you also been just playing Pig or trying anything else?
Yeah, this week I just played Pig. I've been climbing through Legend. Um I feel like he's really strong. Like I feel, I play kind of, I would say I'm maybe doing Silk like 25% of the time, and then probably like stuff relating to Wrist Warrior, which may or may not include 28-hour fitness, probably another 50% of the time. And then probably like the rest of it is split between drum and freeze. And I also am a income start enjoyer. I mean, we talked about it last week. Um, and I think that, yeah, Pig feels really strong. He feels like he's more of a tempo character than ever before. I think that's a good change. I think in general, the way the game came out, where Pig was like a late game super monster at the end of the game, and then the other characters really were not on the same level on the late game. They were not on the same planet on the late game, right? At various points in the past, especially during the closed beta and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that was never sustainable. That as people got better at the game, that was never going to, and especially as the rank system changed, that was never going to be sustainable. Like with that setup, with like that kind of meta, with the rank system the way it is now, I think it would be like Pig or bust. Like imagine we were in like Mac doesn't exist. It's Dulie, Vanessa, Pig, and it's like back in the day when Crook is insane. It's just like I think you would like feel that the game was very unbalanced if everyone was as good as they are today back then. And I think that that's something that happens a lot, is that like you look back on past metas and think like, man, if I understood the game then the way I understand the game now, I could have really done damage. You know what I mean? Like I could have been insane.
Yeah,
Um
it's been so obvious so many times, even just with stuff like Infinite Knives back when like nobody had any idea how to optimize Vanessa.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, and it's like there's like you find out at the end of on week 2 of a patch or something, that there's some crazy build that like is actually insane, and everyone's been sleeping on it. Like I think you saw the slow emergence of eels. That was a really like that thing with eels was possible as soon as custom scope came out, right? The most broken version of eels
Yeah,
was
yeah.
possible as soon as custom scope came out, but people weren't playing it for 2 weeks or something. And so it took a long time for the meta to adopt. And I think that like that is like that to me is like the game. Like that is the Bazaar, is like you're playing a game that's like information based. There's tons of knowledge to be had, not just about direct knowledge about what the items do themselves,
Hmm.
but kind of like the meta knowledge of what other people are playing and what those strategies are weak to and what items are good against those strategies. And having an edge in that like information game, like during those times when things are still settling, that is where like in my opinion, the edge of good players come from. And it doesn't come from playing the best build every single run. Like to me, like that kind of edge is translates fine to, for example, what you're doing, Sunny, right? Like if you have more if you have more game knowledge about what is strong against the meta strategies, it's like of course your non-meta strategies are also going to perform better, right? Because you're going to know
Yeah.
what cards counter them. And I think
Hmm.
that like that is to me like the cool part. It's like figuring out like navigating this kind of like shifting landscape, right? That is a big part of the fun for me. And it's like you can do that within the context of playing meta builds yourself and saying like, okay, I'm a Silk servant. I'm gonna play Silk every time, but but now like I'm metagaming my Silk boards. Like Silk is a great board for metagaming because you only need 4 slots worth of cards to actually kill your opponent, and you get to have 6 slots to do whatever you want. And those 6 slots can be, the textiles, the aforementioned textiles. It can be ointment. It can be, maybe you have caltrops with some kind of way to have flat weapon damage. Like there's lots of stuff you can do with the rest of your silk board. You could have bees, you know what I mean? Like you could have silk plus a bees package, right? Like that is totally a viable thing you can do. And it like comes down to understanding what is going to be like effective in the meta, even though I'm doing it in the context of like a quote unquote meta build silk. There's still so much room for creativity and like doing better and performing better against the expected opponents, even within the
Mhm.
context of a quote unquote known build. So I think that's part of what's exciting about the game to me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And being able to read that meta is so important. And that's also like what you said about eels, and that like kind of became like this insane build that suddenly everybody knew about a little bit later. It's also like in the context of this, that's not even like the most relevant thing, because it's just all about like, okay, if everybody's playing Mac right now, I gotta find a way to burst them. Otherwise, he just like regens for like a
Yeah.
lifetime, and I can never beat him. So I think that's also like a really interesting thing to look at and consider. It's just like, what are people playing? How can I still farm YouTube content while, in a way,
Yeah.
um, still making sure that I can get 10 wins sometimes. And yeah, I love that about Bazaar. And I've said this on stream before too. I loved Runeterra, but it is at the end of the day like a card game where you're sitting down and at the same time an opponent is playing against you.
Yeah.
And that can get frustrating sometimes. And Bazaar doesn't have that. So as far as like me as a streamer, and that's like not regarding viewership or how competitive I am. It's just pure like my enjoyment. I think Bazaar is unmatched as a streamer game, and no other game does it quite like it, because
Yeah.
other auto betters like TFT have a time limit. Bazaar doesn't have that. You can yap as long as you want. You can do stuff with viewers, like talk to them as much as you want. It's perfect in every sense, and I hope they kind of like double down on that, where there is like I think the streaming and content, the streaming scene especially, is very healthy for Bazaar. I think currently, I think the YouTube scene not necessarily, but I think given enough time, that will also change. I think with stuff like achievements or like just alternative things you can do and farm will really help with that as well.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the Bazaar as like a old guy game, by the way. That it's like it's a zero manual, no manual dexterity required. You could play it with one arm, like with whatever.
A game
Um,
for unks.
yeah,
Yeah.
it actually it kind of is though. Like you can take a time out of your run to like I don't know, push your kid in the stroller. I don't do the dishes. I don't know,
Um,
but
Yeah,
yeah, no, you're
those
right.
are the primary things that I do during every bazaar run. It's just the simultaneous stroller pushing, dishwashing bazaar gameplay is
yeah.
peak efficiency.
Oh man. Dude, I have like an obsession with doing everything efficiently. I think it just stems from me being a jungler in League of Legends. Like I gotta path
Yo,
between my camps efficiently.
same.
So once Bazaar comes out on phone, like I
Yes.
I don't know, man.
I
There's gonna
say
be a whole
like
different angle to efficiency.
You're
every
pathing
episode.
between the rooms in your house.
Yeah, I
I
mean, yeah.
used to be like season 1 or 2 of Runeterra. I finished rank 2, and it was all just because of playing on my phone in my bed like every morning when I was like, I don't really want to get up yet. What if I just play Lux Karma instead in bed?
Oh man, yeah.
That's
There you go.
we need that for the bazaar. everything I need right now, honestly. Um,
Agreed.
Myself, I've mostly been playing Dulie. I will mention I've been thinking a lot because pretty much every episode I mention how I have tried a bit of Vanessa, but something just feels a little bit off. And I'm starting to be reasonably convinced that the big issue with Vanessa right now is that almost every single core item to her character starts at silver, meaning that it's just so hard to feel like you can reliably target things that you want, and instead you have to almost entirely wing it. You have to just like completely be ready to just use whatever you can happen to find. And I'm always feeling a little bit like I like being flexible and fluid to a degree, but it's also so nice when you have that early game, especially early game consistency of knowing that you can pretty reliably have a silk on pig. Showcase starts at bronze. I think Ganjo starts at bronze. Piggle's launcher starts at bronze.
Yeah.
Lumbor starts at bronze. He's got so many items that are just really good right now, and that start at bronze, meaning you're gonna have them. And all the Mac quest items are largely the same, right? Like the region poison ones at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to say that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's exactly that.
so I've definitely that's been a pain point, especially with the fact that Vanessa used to have some pretty stable bronze items like jellyfish, like catfish, like um the vents, Zoarcid. Zoarcid's still really good, of course, and then like the shark claws, but a lot of those right now, like shark claws is kind of worse than Pygmalion's scaling options and doesn't get over max regen options and can't keep up with Dulie's cores. So that one's, you gotta scratch that. And when items like catfish have had their cooldown nerfed so many times, that like slow application has just not been able to keep up with the rise in health. I feel is like the big thing. Where right now, early poison, when you apply it slower and simultaneously everyone has more health than they used to, it just feels like you're never actually killing. Sometimes I'll like die to a shield build in Sandstorm with poison because it's just not
Ooh.
enough poison. Unless you're playing
Yeah.
Mac, of course. Very different story there.
Yeah, that does sound painful if you're like can't even get there with poison versus shields like that. That doesn't sound like a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been feeling the same playing Vanessa, and I feel like Dually is a bit different in the sense that Dually gets a core, so you
Yeah.
always have a little bit of direction, if anything. But yeah, with Silk or with Pig, you have Silk. With Mac, you have quest items, and with Vanessa, it's like yeah, you have Julian, but even that's not really like a fair comparison at all. It is
Yeah.
like a long-term scaling option, but it's just it really doesn't do anything early on.
It also doesn't tell you super much about what your board direction should be, right? Like
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it just says, "Oh, you want a weapon," but it could be a one weapon, it could be many weapons, it could be a proboscis, you know what I mean? Like there could be a lot of ways to utilize Julian. It's not so much clear direction and it's not a lot of early game power either. So
Yeah.
it's like pretty weak early, so
I also
yep,
think
yeah, no, exactly.
something I've noticed a lot with like the current design of many items is that things that start at bronze are generally speaking quite decent when you get them upgraded to silver. And because we still have a guaranteed upgrade a bronze item, and we have B1, B2, I find that I can pretty reliably get one or two items to silver. But when the item starts at silver, and Sterling really does not like showing up in my runs, and I don't have a guaranteed level 7 upgrade, a lot of the time, those items, like, what is it? The Kusarigama on Vanessa, which lets you scale your weapons when you slow or crit. The fact that when you go from silver to gold, you're not just doubling the scaling, you're also doubling the targets. So you're increasing your scaling by 4 times a lot of the time. And that goes for so many of the other slow items, like the dart launchers, or having at least 2 procs on your shot glasses, and that kind of stuff. It just feels like you're so upgrade starved for getting things to gold where they'll actually do something. And that's why Dulie has felt so strong now, of course, because he kind of has that asynchronous advantage of he gets to upgrade his scaling thing to gold every run, and Vanessa just does not.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I think that is just like a thing that really like I really used to enjoy Vanessa, but ever since the nerfs to like the few powerful items that she had, I've been like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna stick to Pig and Mag because
Yeah,
even if I do enjoy off meta, I like having that little bit of direction sometimes. And I feel like even with quest items, it's not always clear what you're playing. They do
yeah.
fit better in a couple of builds than others, but they are more flexible than people give them credit for, 100%.
On Dually, on the other hand, though, I have actually since last week been trying a bit of gold skill start again, and
Oh, is
it's
that because of what Natalie said, or
partially
just based
because of
on?
Natalie, and partially because of Magma Burn. It's one of our
Okay.
earliest guests on the podcast, but I've been chatting to him on in the Dually channel on the official Discord, and he really strongly advocates for crit core. He thinks crit core is just kind of busted, which makes sense. It doesn't have the innate scaling that Ignition does, which that's definitely the easiest core to get wins with right now. If you just click Ignition every time you see it, your Dually win rate is going to be ridiculous.
Hmm.
But Ignition Crit Core is the only core that can charge itself, for one, and it's also the only core that kind of has that innate crit chance in addition to that, which means that any scaling that you apply to the crit core in the first place kind of returns to you multiplied. So the strategy largely revolves around making sure that you click every curio you see, that you pick up sharpening stones, that you make sure you get those generic damage skills, and just get the base value on your crit core high enough that when it starts going in a fight, it just keeps going. So almost instantly that it can just churn through an entire Pygmalion's like full HP bar. But then obviously you need it to have the base damage in the first place, and it means that if you start with the gold skill, you kind of know a little bit how easy of an in you have to the crit core line. Whereas the other cores like weaponized and ignition and regular core, they don't really care for it. And I've been hearing from the people who play companion core that on that one you're especially incentivized to just go income. So it's yeah, it's an interesting. It's interesting how all of the starts on Dually feel so viable, but have really significant differences in terms of how you play the character depending on which start you picked, at least right now.
I mean, it makes sense to pair crit core with skill start in the sense that as dually, sometimes you're going to be forced to take like right eye. Like right eye in particular is really
Yeah.
good on crit core actually. So it's
It's
like
also
even
really
though
good on Ignition too, to be fair.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. I was just thinking like, we normally conceive of the crit skills as being like low rolls
Yeah.
for the skill start perspective. But for crit core in particular, right eye is actually quite nasty.
I
It's
think
like a
honestly, just for Dulie in general, right now, because he's become much more reliant on skills giving you ways to augment your late game scaling compared to previously. Um, I have talked to a lot of these high on the ladder Dually players. I think at least Magma as of yesterday was rank 4 or thereabouts.
oh wow,
And
he's
he's
really
not.
killing it.
It's not a lot of like 3D printer in. He has this like Excel sheet where he tracks the wins, and as of late, he had more wins with a pistol sword than 3D printer.
Yeah,
Pistol sword.
Yeah.
is that an official stat?
Yes,
More
that's
wins with pistol sword.
official Magma stat. More wins with pistol sword than 3D printer.
I mean, you just click on that. The one. What is that guy called?
Yeah,
All the
the
all talk guy.
something
Yeah,
duelist, right?
yeah. Preening duelist.
Training
Oh
duelist,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I can kind of see it. Like,
It's also an extremely magma stat, you know?
yeah. So it's ammo dually, like atomic clock, whatever.
I don't really know. I haven't
It's
actually seen the board. I've seen some boards. I've just been trying to get some reps in myself
presumably
as
multiple
well.
copies of Uzi, maybe. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I actually like see I kind of like see the angle, right? Like, Duelie's ammo items are all extremely good, right?
Yeah.
Uzi, atomic clock, plasma grenade, like those are some of the very best Duelie cards that exist. So
Hmm.
it actually does make sense. Like it's cool. I've never seen it that like you're
It's
setting
also one
off
of those where like it has
fireworks in my
kind
brain right now.
of like crazy enchants too.
Oh yeah, it does have insane enchants.
Yeah.
That does sound cool. Like you've kind of piqued my interest with that one.
He advocates for making sure that you pick Dualtron mainframe as well with your core
Okay.
carry build.
Okay. I got absolutely destroyed by a Dualtron mainframe the other day, so
Yeah, I do think
I'm a
actually
believer in that card for sure.
it's been very impressive how well the bugs still perform. These days, I'm usually picking up all of the bugs with like the blue bug is like the least common, but even that, if you just already have a good setup for the poison bug, which isn't that rare, or if you get toxic fang, is in a lot of encounters right now.
Mm.
It's definitely very possible to play it. And I do think it's a very fun build. Like, I think anyone who's considering trying it out, don't feel intimidated by the prospect of, like, oh, I gotta hit Crude Tools 3D printer or saddle thrusters or I'm screwed. Because of how fast you can get the core to be now, especially with just having a regular crude tools and kind of going like random bullshit go, um, you can get it to be very consistent. The best tip that I can give is to make sure that whichever core you're running, you always want to make sure that you really get that base number up, even on stuff like Ignition Core, because if your Ignition Core starts at 8, then you're going to need it to activate twice to get to 20, 4 times to be up to 30. If your Ignition Core starts in the 20 to 30 range, it's like you already have 2 or 3 extra activations on the first one, and you go on a very hair thin margin, especially against Pygmalion, in terms of your kill time moving by 2 or 3 seconds in either direction can entirely just decide the outcome of the fight.
I can
I gotta
totally
see
see
some
that.
screenshots.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Like I think Artisan Dunes on Ignition Core is like super good. So
Yeah.
I really like this idea of like when you have burn or poison, like maxing the initial application is, I find, very underrated by players, right? Is that people kind of are overly focused on scaling when it comes to the status effects, but actually like a huge initial application is often going to be a lot more damage over the course of the like basically it takes way past 30 seconds for the scaling to catch up to a huge initial application of burn when
Yeah.
you're faced with those kind of decisions. So I think that's a good call out, because like obviously it's the scaling, it's the self-scaling that made these core carry builds viable,
Hmm.
but at the same time, like you shouldn't ignore that and the initial application, because it's so significant. Just like applying burn immediately is just so much more damage than
Yeah.
applying more of it later on because of the way it works. So it's just like
And
that's definitely a good shout out
it's
for
been
Dually
especially
players.
interesting because I think Dually right now, even though the playstyle seems relatively simple, it harkens back to the older days of Dually where every run was crazy like tech intensive in that it's so dependent on your game knowledge in terms of what can I break this with, because almost every run you get some monster skill or monster item or pearl item that makes your scaling ridiculous. And the core carry builds oftentimes right now in this meta where there's so much Mac and so much Pig and they're so scary in the mid game, you can't reliably try to always win 10 by 10 anymore. That's not consistent. But if you go for this, I'm much more aiming to break whichever core I'm running, you're pretty comfortable at day 14, day 15. Like you're just feeling like I'm in a pretty good spot now, especially because you're not gonna get just randomly kegged by a Vanessa the same way that you used to. Um
Yeah, I mean the lack of keg I think is a big part of it. I think that's a good shout out. I mean it's a big part of why 28 hour is also really good,
yeah.
is the lack of keg, right? So that definitely has opened up, these more, I mean, even though like with crude tools like the core carry is extremely fast, like when you're playing like a restorative ignition core, in a sense that is like a mid-rangey kind of strategy, right? You're trying to race with a combination of offense and defense, and it's similar to Pig, who's also, trying to race with a combination of
Yeah.
offense and defense. And both of those things are countered by keg, and both of those things benefit immensely when it's just not keg after keg after keg on day 14
Like
from Vanessa.
low key, right now, I feel like Dooley has kind of become Vanessa. The game is so slow that, for all intents and purposes, Uzi is better at being Clamra than Clamra is currently. And also shout out to some hilarious tech like Valley Fever Pyrocarbon is ridiculously broken. You just get size unrestricted
The full board, yeah,
holsters.
the full
Yeah.
board rigged or whatever, the instant rigged. Yeah,
So
that's
it
Yeah.
feels like it's a lot of stuff like that where right now when like everything that isn't Uzi has gotten bonked, if you have stuff like Uzi or hotspot Uzi or fiber optics Uzi or quick ignition Uzi, or you start picking up all the free skills. I had my latest run. I went Bjorn on level 8 to pick up the haste freeze. Like that's where we're at basically. Where you will go off first, and if going off first means that the enemy already has 400 burn by their first activation, Pig and Mac need to loop 2 or 3 times to really get going. And if your loops are just, like 2 seconds into the fight and they're start at 4 or 5 because you're disrupting them and going off yourself, I think it's the best build in the game at going under people consistently.
yeah, I believe it, especially if you add the line consistently at the end, because that is its
Yeah.
other strength, right? Is that you can really very consistently assemble it. So
I'll
yeah, I mean, I think all three of the heroes other than Vanessa are in a pretty good spot. And again, I don't think Vanessa is like that far behind, really.
yeah.
She just has to play slow stuff to compete, I
I'll
think, a lot of
I'll
the time.
throw some sample boards of it at the end as the kind of board of the week, and I am also planning to. I released my big Dulie overview yesterday, so that's finally out with all the Dulie items, and I'm planning to make a dedicated strategy guide for this core carry playstyle, maybe even tonight, to
Okay.
upload that. So it might be out by the time that this this episode drops. So
Awesome.
you can check that out for more details. But before we get to that, I did actually think of a topic that would kind of be fun to talk about just briefly when I heard you guys talking about achievements earlier. I was actually talking to Sixten about this just the other day, and for anyone wondering, he'll probably not be back for the next episode, but most likely for the episode after that. So we're right at the cusp
The
of getting
long-awaited
Sixten back.
return.
Yeah, I
Return of the
know
king.
everyone's been really excited to have him back. He's just on extended travels, so he is returning. He's extremely excited to play Stell, and of course, whenever Dulie is good, it's a good time to be Sexton. So that'll come later. But topic of the week. I'm very curious to hear what do you guys think would be the most fun, like, meta features to add to the game? So things that take place outside of runs, what would you like to see in the vein of, for example, achievements?
So as in like everything Bazaar that isn't while you're in a run? Is that what you
So
meant?
anything that is in game, like in client, stuff that you can do, and it can be related to runs, like achievements, but achievements isn't like within the run itself, it exists on like a meta plane. So I'm very curious,
Right.
stuff like alternative game modes, maybe, or events, or like what kind of stuff do you feel is the most fun and engaging when it comes to live service titles like this?
So this is a really big ask, and like if anything, if I can say anything, I would like to see um some kind of competitive circuits, I guess, like just
Yeah.
lobbies where you can play with friends, tournaments, etc., stuff like that. I don't think the game is built for this at all. But if I can ask for anything, I think just a competitive scene for any game is extremely healthy. So that would be my
I would also love that to I mean, I would that would be amazing to me. I've put a lot of thought actually into how this could work. Kind of it's outside the purview of this podcast. Like it would have to be its own separate thing because there's a lot of issues and a lot of considerations. But I would absolutely love a some kind of competitive lobby system, maybe 64 player flights or something. Um, like that might be a way to do it where because I think you don't in terms of if you wanted to mirror the like the like normal way you play, I think you would not want to play against the same players every single day or even like one of 8 players every single day because it becomes very sideboardy and metagamey. Um, I think it would be better with like a bigger lobby. The
Hmm.
way and so that allows room for it to still feel like you're playing a different person. Maybe you play against one person twice or something. And that would more mirror the experience of playing a card game tournament,
It's
which
very
is I think
interesting because you can basically have it be like an endurance gauntlet with the way the bazaar especially is structured, where you can just keep going until only one person has any prestige left. It's not like there's a strict day limit. You can just keep going, keep going, keep going. And it would cause this interesting phenomena, right, where the less people remain, the closer you get to the quote unquote finals, the more it becomes about playing against someone in almost like a head to head.
Yeah, it like
Yeah.
narrows down. It's like a poker tournament in a way.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
narrows down to playing against a specific person. I think yeah, I think that would be really really cool. Um, and like in a way, like the Ghost solves the problem of like having odd numbers of players at certain intervals or whatever. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's actually like lots of ways to fix the structural problems using the ghosts. So I think it would be such a cool idea. It's an amazing ask. I think if I had to predict, not this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
But
That would take like a
I
lot because for a system like that to work, the UI need to be very different. The
yeah.
prestige thing in general is just out of the window. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could still do it with prestige in a way. I'm not sure. There's different ways. There's different ways that it could be handled. You could handle it like as a direct like knockout tournament, but you could still have the prestige and have the prestige system exist within a smaller pool of players who are still eliminating each other. It's like in a way like the elimination rounds of the tournament don't start until like a couple days into the tournament, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So so you could still do prestige. I think it would have to work differently basically. And maybe the amount of prestige you would lose would be a function of the amount of players who are left in the game, like something like that. So I think there are solutions, there are system designs, systems, tournament systems, whatever formats, whatever you want to call them, that could accommodate what you're asking for. I think yeah, it's a huge ask for them. Um and like I think that it's in a way it's like an ask for people who are already the most invested players,
I
right?
think it's
Like
just I mean, yeah, because the people that are invested right now are more likely to compete in a scene like that. But I also think just like for viewers and having higher stakes and having
Yeah.
this sense of like if I get good enough, I might be able to compete is yeah, I don't know.
I
Great.
definitely feel
yeah,
like, at least personally, I've been consuming considerably less bizarre content recently. Where like the more the game has become more and more stable, I still enjoy playing it, but it usually feels like whenever I'm tuning into a streamer or something, it's more about me just wanting to ask their opinion on something rather than just watch them play out the run, since at the end of the day, they've gotten so good at it that it's just really consistent, methodical. They're probably winning. The stakes are fairly low. But I would absolutely kill to watch like a tournament where it feels like the stakes are really there and I'll be emotionally invested in the run. And I do think that's also one of the advantages of like
that's the
people.
trade-off of tournaments versus ladders, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of the dynamic of it is like the ladder lets anyone play whenever they want at any point in the day and we can all participate and we don't have to be coordinated at all. Tournaments are a big coordination problem where everyone has to be around at the same time and willing to set aside their time. So I think yeah, for now it's like the ladder, any individual game doesn't have that much
Yeah.
stakes on the ladder, but I still feel that like people are invested in. I know watching Raresh and Pink Beaver and Snazer all battle for like the top spots this
Yeah, I think
season
that's
has been
probably
exciting for me. Like
the
it's hard
main
to keep
stakes right
track
now,
of, but
right? Yeah, it's those
yeah.
high ladder spots.
So I mean that's been relatively exciting for me. Like I said, it
Hmm.
really beats the crap out of the old system where I didn't care at
Yeah,
all who
for
was top of the
sure, for
ladder because it just
sure.
means they like pooped in a sock. You know, and
Yeah.
like it would, you know.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I personally, I think something that, and I think Sunny would like this too, but it would kind of kick ass to have some like story modes in the Bazaar too, to get a
Yeah.
little bit more of that lore in client, because the world building is extremely interesting.
Yeah, the setting
For
is
sure.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's extremely likely that this is something they're already working on. This is
Mm.
not something I am particularly interested in from a content perspective because this is usually like a one and done type of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
So, but I think it is valuable, not only for new players, but also just like world building in itself is extremely interesting to me.
And also being like a gateway into getting people more interested in finding out more about the lore, which then lends itself to the possibility of making lore videos and having more people want to engage with that content.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's that. It's like if you want the game to last and be more than just like people competing in a game that plays nicely, it's just like have this world and you can expand on that in a million ways. And it's just really good to see that they are doing that at all because
Yeah.
I think for games like this, like the way it's being released and stuff, it's not at all common to have like this extensive world building and this much of it already like open to the public at all.
Right, it feels like it's such a solid foundation. I think that was one of the
Yeah.
things that was such a big deal about Runeterra was that, hey, it's in the name, it's set in Runeterra.
Can I give my ask? It's one that's already
Yeah,
been
go
promised.
for it.
I want the marketplace. I think that
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
trading will really light a fire under the game. That I think that even though that in theory, like we're like I don't feel much when I open chests. Like there's like lots of there's like cool items and like I like having the skins. Once you're 50 games deep into the season, you're not really getting anything new from the chest except for
Yeah,
like the one mythic that you're hunting for, or whatever, the one legendary, I don't know, legendary that you're hunting for, or the two
Yeah.
legendaries that you're hunting for. So it's like I would love to feel like I was getting something that I could trade potentially for currency that I could then use to buy a skin that I missed from a previous season. Just like
yeah.
something that would where I would feel, I don't know, like I was getting something more from having a million copies of whatever marbles skin or something. I don't know. So yeah, the marketplace. That's what I want. That's
I think as my closing thought on the particular topic, I also think it could be really cool to have some form of in-game events, especially when we're getting to this like lull part of the end of the season where I feel like the people who are obviously pushing for certain like legend ranks will be very invested, but I oftentimes feel like I taper off a little bit when I'm just going through the motions of playing the build that I decided that I really like the way it feels and stuff, and sort of waiting for new content or something. And in
yeah,
a
just
lot of
doing your
the
daily quests, going through the battle pass or
right,
whatever. Just
right,
the yeah.
a lot of the other live service games that I play would do like fun events, and a lot of the time it's just like, the battle pass by another name. It's just more like do a thing to get things, but what can I say? I'm a simple crow boy. When I get the thing, I get happy. Give me thing. Yes. That's my sales pitch.
No, that's fair. I think there always needs to be a chase.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a thing that Bazaar could definitely improve on. It's one of the bigger things. I think it has a good chase, but it's
Hmm.
not perfect. And especially if you put in like a certain amount of hours, if you're really like a dedicated player, it does get very lacking near the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I would still rather have them honestly, to put as much effort towards new player acquisition as they can. I think that is like ultimately like the game becoming bigger sooner will mean that you'll get all these other things that we also want sooner also. That like it's good for the game to be popular, and I believe in the gameplay. I believe that the game is fun. So I think that like getting it in front of new people is should be like one of their primary focus or whatever.
Yeah, agreed. It's got a good base. Like in general, I think the Bazaar is extremely strong, and they just have like
Yeah.
a gold mine of a game on their hand,
Yeah,
and the
they
sky's the limit.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. That the game, the game speaks for itself. You just gotta convince someone to install it on their computer and play it. Like that's
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and
That's
then you gotta
always the
make them keep
hurdle, right?
playing. Yeah, they gotta keep playing. I think the new
Yeah,
player experience is also lacking. I was speaking
that's
about
part
that
of it.
when
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
Toby
that's
was in my chat
definitely.
when I said that. People were like,
Hmm.
somebody in my chat asked me like, what do you think is one thing that Bazaar can really do better? And I was like, yeah, the new player experience is pretty poor. And then Toby said like, we're working on it. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I think they're aware of it. I think it's a tough situation where it's like you don't want to how do you say, like, they were when you're responding to the community, you're always responding to the community of existing players, right? It's hard to cater to the needs of a community who aren't part of the community yet, and that's what new players
Hmm.
are. And so it's hard to discern what is good, what is helping them, what is helping them stay with the game, because they're probably the least likely to give you feedback, right? Like we as like I'm I'm a host of a podcast about the game. Like I spend all the time thinking about the Bazaar. Like I have complex thoughts, I have strong feelings, I have big opinions. Like new players don't have any of those things. So it's really hard from the point of view of tempo to understand their needs, right? It's easy for them to understand my needs because I'm sitting here on a podcast telling them exactly what I want, right? But if
Yeah.
but they don't have that for new players. So yeah.
But I thought that would just be like a little bit of a fun segment as we're nearing. I think is it season 6 now?
I think this is season 4.
This is season 4, so the next one
Season
will be
4,
season
season
5.
5, next one. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, we do think that they are working very hard on very many things with quite the small team. For anyone who's interested in a little bit more behind the scenes of how Tempo works internally, I'd strongly recommend checking out the developer special episode that we had with the lead game designer Toby Sarnell. It's on the same channel as everything else for this. But he provided some really valuable insight, not limited to just how small their team is. So they're doing a spectacular job, all things considered.
Yeah, they're incredibly ambitious project in terms of their content release schedule. For a card game, I think it's just incredibly ambitious, not just for the size of their team, but just in general.
Yeah,
That
for
that
sure.
card game pieces are hard to design and balance, and that releasing new ones every month is just, yeah, they're it's really like new territory, if you ask me. Like I think it's amazing.
Yeah. But with all that
Yep.
said, I did promise to show you guys some example boards. This one right here is my most recent run, where I managed to get a perfect win doing some Dragonheart stuff. That's always a strong one. This is when I was
It's fiery ignition core?
Fire Ignition Core.
Okay. This
Um,
seems strong, yeah.
I was testing the gold skill start, and I ended up with just Fiery as my best option, which is obviously a fairly bad one, but in the early days, I managed to get a rocket launcher. And that is one of the advantages of skill start right now, is that rocket launcher and pulse rifle are, I'm not gonna mince words, they're shit these days if you just run them as they are. They are so slow that it's just not ever gonna win you fights anymore. But rocket launcher is still 3x multicast burn item. If you have a burn skill, it will set people on fire. That is what it does. That managed to carry me in the early game, and then it is still kind of that textbook example on what I was talking about with you gotta do some weird tech stuff. I ended up having my Adira. No, it wasn't Adira, it was Simon. It was Simon on 12. Just gave me Diamond Body System, and it made me completely pivot from a board where I was, as per usual, playing a lot of the bugs. And it's also pretty reasonable to play Aiden if you get him at gold or above. If you have Plasma Grenade, you can play Hamlet. But in this particular case, most of the time, especially if I'm running Ignition Core, I'm very likely to be running a few of the bugs, since it's kind of a free starter for that whole chain. But of course, you can't do that with Buddy System. But Missiles is one of those cards that hasn't gotten bonked that much. She's on a 4-second base cooldown. And if you have Diamond Buddy System, suddenly that's basically just like having 2 more Uzis on your board. It gets really powerful.
Yeah, I can see it. Missiles is always a card I liked as like kind of, in a way, it's like 2 small items.
Yeah.
You can think of it that way in your head, but then it also gives you like these kind of friend synergies, like the buddy system, like you mentioned. So
And I
it is
think that
definitely a
that's
good shout
kind
out.
of the core thing here, where the opponent that I was facing has a lot of things that are really broken on Dulie. Like, he has Diamond Fang with 3 diamond items, 2 of which are enchanted, one of which is shiny Beta Ray at Diamond, which is probably the best item you can have in like Dulie's entire kit. It's ridiculous. He has the plasma grenade, the usual suspects, CPU throttling, also a really powerful skill. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really get you there if you end up running into someone who can just massively get under you in terms of start time. Since what he had to give up is, of course, with the nitro that he's running, he's not getting the crude tools cooldown reduction. He didn't have anything like the buddy system, and not really any like quick starter, no fiber optics or any of that like either. So even though he also has a very powerful build, you could almost submit this for like who would win. It was fairly close. Um, it's just
Hmm.
the advantage of having that 1 or 2 extra like activations just gets you there, even though the only thing I have on my entire board that's like quote unquote OP is just the Dragon Heart, which I got from a mountain pass. The double potions are because I went to Pearl and I found a potion distillery, and so I started turning my bugs into potions instead, so that I could um because the bugs work a lot worse if you don't want to run additional burn items. So obviously, to enable the Dragon Heart, I was cutting my Plasma Grenade and my Fire Bug, and then you can't run Poison Bug, and I think I also had Freeze Bug, but you can't run him without the Poison Bug, and Buddy System, and that whole harangue. So that's one example, and the other one I had was this one where I am the Beta Ray Diamond Fangs player. Um, Normally you do want Valley Fever from Mountain Pass to run Pyrocarbon, but obviously the cog always hastes the Plasma Grenade here, and between the cog haste and then the Diamond Fangs, and finally Righty Tighty, which is an amazing skill on Dually currently, just because you're very likely to only run Plasma Grenade. I think in this particular case, this was a 3 or 4 second Plasma Grenade, so it was a pretty long one. That was another just good example of there's no 3D printing going on. It was just something else I found that was broken.
Ignition core special.
Yeah. Um but so those are like 2 examples. I will be making a guide that has like a little bit more actual information regarding more generally what to look out for. But I think it is really fun right now. It does feel very similar to Vanessa in the sense of it's similar to like when you're just trying to find whatever is the best thing to abuse with the fact that you have holsters and clamra, but instead of holsters and clamra, it's stuff like monster skills and the fact that you have access to Uzi. Oh.
Yeah, I see. These are boards I usually play against. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so for Dulie especially, that makes it really hard to guess the power of it. Because the way the items work, it's not nearly as obvious as just Pig having really big numbers on one item.
Yeah, and so much of it just comes down to like what are the actual stats on the core itself. I had one run where I think I got like two separate what's it called? Like diamond scrap, whatever. So here I had like a 2.3 second core when I wasn't running crude tools. I was going with the thrusters saddle instead. And that just gets completely brutal, but you don't know until you hover the core and you go, oh shit, wait, that's 2.3 seconds. And then, yeah, you
Yeah,
go on
and
fire.
skills can also make you so much more brutal as Dually too. If you have a
Yeah.
whole bunch of one-time freezes, what looks like a kind of normal mid board can just kills you like right before you get online just because you ate three freezes at the start of the fight. Like that's Dually just has access to a lot of really nasty late game combinations of skills. Like there's also some of the monster skills are just so good. Like the when you burn haste is unbelievable on Dually.
Yeah.
Like there's just there's a lot of there's a lot of things that make Dually boards hard to read from
Yeah, and I think I've noticed, especially looking in the Dually chat and the official Discord, that's also the thing that makes Dually the least approachable, because it's so difficult to look at your losing board and a good player's winning board and understanding intuitively what was it that was so different. When
Yeah.
so much of it is tucked away in like the skills and the cooldown reduction and stuff like that.
It does make me appreciate the design space a lot, where Dually is about creating those chains a lot, but that is just naturally harder to read.
Yeah. With all that said, though, as always, we're finishing off with the socials. So, Sunny, if people want to find more of you, where can they do so?
Both on Twitch and YouTube, I am just Snnuy, SNNUY, and on Twitter, I am Snnuy LOR.
And do you have anything particularly exciting coming up in the near future that people might get hyped for?
Potentially a lot of Stell gameplay if she is actually coming out in a couple of weeks. I haven't seen that confirmed anywhere. And yeah, maybe a little bit
coming
more.
soon, TM.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coming
right. So
soon.
it's gotta
Yeah.
be August, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's off meta stuff and more of those what board wins kind of videos mostly.
I
Yeah.
want to catch the next what board wins stream. I that sounds fun
Yeah.
for me because I'm definitely like the type of person I love like when I have obviously backseat a lot of streamers. I love being like, yeah, you win this monster fight, you lose this monster fight. Like I
See how right
like
you actually are.
predicting. Yeah, like I like predicting. I think there's skill to being able to read the board and understand what's going to happen. I think that shows like a deep understanding of the items. So yeah, I actually like that's something that like I do have pride about. And that sounds weird, but it actually is like I think
Yeah,
that's a cool ability to have.
test your skill.
Yeah, exactly. You can find me in Sunny's chat testing my skill, guessing see if he's gonna beat Lich.
Backseating,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, something along those lines, exactly.
Doing Walter things, Getting
hmm
some.
hmm
Make sure you always get some chimeric egg controversy in there too.
Yeah, yeah. Like you better buy that egg. It's the best item in the game.
Oh.
Like, I mean, not that anyone skips egg. Like, why would you? But
Free
you'll
money.
find me advocating for egg. Yes.
And yeah, myself, it's MetallFenix, 2 L's and an F, same name as on the screen, YouTube and Twitch. I haven't been streaming a ton lately, but I'm hoping to do more of that, especially when Stell comes out. I think it's just gonna be a lot of fun to like put in the hours. I think everyone's gonna go crazy for whenever that drops. And my YouTube channel, I mentioned it earlier, but I do a lot of guide content. I did a big overview for Dulie recently. If you want to just familiarize yourself with the general concepts on him and how they're connected, And the next thing that I'm making sure to push out is the more specific guide for the core carry playstyle, since I think it's both very fun and very strong right now. And then I'll probably be doing, I expect, just a lot of Stell and Dulie in the near future. I've been hyped for Stell since closed beta. I was always saying, Sixten has been teasing me for so long about how I said that Stell was the character I was the most excited for, and she's kind of perpetually been on the horizon. But it seems like it finally may be happening, coming soon, TM. Uh, so probably that. Everyone's going to be playing her, but also just more Dually. I think the playstyle right now is really fun because I get to feel like I have creative expression, but I don't feel completely lost in the sauce like I do on Vanessa, or like I will get even worse arthritis than League gave me from selling 1 trillion gumballs. So that's where I'm at right now. That's who you can expect. For this channel itself, you can also, as always, expect more episodes every week, new guest. In 2 weeks, roughly, Sixten should be back. I know everyone's been dying to see the return of the
Also soon,
king.
TM.
He is coming back. He's alive. We know it. But yeah, that'll be that. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or via RSS feed for your listening app of choice. This has been a Bazaar podcast, and I hope that wherever you are, you have a wonderful morning, day, evening, or night, and that perhaps we see you in the next one.